Unlocking creativity through mindful Buddhist practice. Have you ever noticed that the most brilliant ideas often come when you're not trying too hard to find them? Maybe it's in the shower, during a walk in the park, or while quietly sipping your morning coffee. That's not a coincidence. That's the mind finally taking a breath, releasing its grip on control, and letting creativity flow. In our fast-moving, hyper-connected world, we are taught to chase inspiration, brainstorm harder, think faster, produce more. But in Buddhism, there's a very different approach. You don't chase creativity. You create the right conditions for it to come to you. Just as a seed won't grow if the soil is hard and dry, ideas won't bloom if your mind is restless and distracted. Mindfulness, the heart of Buddhist practice, is that fertile soil. It's not about forcing the mind to be still, but about noticing what's happening, moment to moment, without judgment. When you practice this, you start to see how many thoughts you juggle every second. Most of them are repetitive. Worries about the future, regrets about the past, endless to-do lists. And here's the thing, all that mental noise leaves very little room for fresh ideas to take root. I remember a friend telling me how she struggled for months to come up with a new concept for her design project. She tried late nights, extra coffee, endless Pinterest boards. Nothing clicked. But then, she signed up for a weekend silent meditation retreat. At first, it was uncomfortable. No phone, no distractions, just her breath and the sound of birds outside. On the second day, during a walking meditation, she suddenly saw her project in an entirely new light. The solution was so simple, it almost felt like it had been waiting there the whole time. She just needed to quiet the noise enough to hear it. This is what Buddhist practice teaches us. Creativity isn't a lightning bolt that strikes randomly. It's more like a stream. It's always flowing, but if the surface of the water is choppy with storms of thought, you can't see what's beneath. Mindfulness calms those waters. One of my favorite teachings from Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh is, when the mind is clear, creativity is effortless. This doesn't mean you'll never have to work hard, but it means your work will feel lighter, more intuitive, because it's not coming from a place of strain. So how do we bring this into our own lives? Start with something simple. Choose one daily activity, maybe brushing your teeth, washing the dishes, or walking to the bus, and do it with your full attention. Notice the sensations, the colors, the smells, the small details you usually miss. This isn't about being productive. It's about training your mind to be present. Over time, that presence spills over into your creative work. You start noticing connections between things you never saw before. You start hearing the quiet voice of inspiration that was drowned out by noise. Another powerful practice is mindful breathing before creative work. Just sit for 2 minutes, close your eyes, and feel the air moving in and out. Every time your mind wanders, and it will, gently bring it back to the breath. You're not trying to think of ideas here. You're simply creating space. And in that space, creativity often walks in uninvited. And here's a little truth we don't talk about enough. Creativity also blossoms in rest. Buddhism teaches the middle way, not pushing yourself to extremes. In our culture, we often glorify overwork, but the mind needs both focused effort and gentle rest. Think about a farmer. They don't dig up the seeds every day to check if they're growing. They water them, give them sunlight, and trust the process. The same applies to your ideas. Some of the most innovative breakthroughs in history happen during periods of stillness. Einstein daydreaming in his office, Steve Jobs taking long walks, countless artists turning to meditation for clarity. These aren't coincidences. They're proof that stillness is not the enemy of productivity, it's the secret ingredient. So the next time you feel stuck, instead of pushing harder, try this. Step away from the problem. Do something slowly and mindfully. Breathe. Listen. Allow space. You might just find that the answer has been quietly waiting for you all along. Creativity is not about inventing something out of thin air. It's about connecting dots in a way that feels new. Buddhist mindfulness helps you see those dots clearly. And when you can see clearly, you can connect them beautifully. If there's one thing I hope you take from this, it's that creativity isn't a gift reserved for a lucky few. It's a natural expression of the human mind when it's free from clutter. We all have that potential. The question is, will you give yourself the space to let it grow? Because in the stillness, the most extraordinary ideas are born. Unlocking creativity through mindful Buddhist practice. Opening hook. What if the secret to unlocking your next big idea isn't hidden in the latest tech gadget, but in ancient wisdom? For centuries, Buddhist practices have cultivated profound insight and focus. And maybe, just maybe, these timeless techniques can revolutionize your creative process, helping you bypass mental blocks and tap into an endless wellspring of innovation. Scene 1. Breaking the myth of creativity. We often think of creativity as this mysterious spark that appears out of nowhere, something only a select few are born with. But what if creativity isn't about being struck by lightning, but about learning to listen? In our noisy, fast-paced world, it's not that we lack ideas. It's that our minds are so cluttered, we can't hear the ones quietly knocking at the door. Buddhism offers a different perspective. It teaches that the mind, when still and present, becomes like a clear mirror. In that clarity, ideas naturally arise, not forced, not chased, but welcomed. Imagine your mind as a pond. If the water is constantly stirred up, you can't see the bottom. But when it's calm, the depths, and all the treasures within, become visible. Scene 2. A personal story of creative breakthrough. I remember a filmmaker friend who spent weeks stuck on a project. She tried working longer hours, making endless mood boards, even drowning herself in coffee. Nothing worked. Out of frustration, she joined a weekend silent meditation retreat. The first day was agony. No phone, no talking, no distractions. But on the second day, while slowly walking through a garden, she noticed the play of sunlight on a single leaf. Something about that moment unlocked a scene in her mind, the missing piece for her entire film. She returned home with not just an idea, but an entirely new direction. It wasn't magic. It was space. She had finally given her mind the room to breathe, and creativity filled the vacuum. Scene 3. Why mindfulness works for creativity. So why does this work? From a Buddhist perspective, the mind is naturally creative. What blocks it is attachment, clinging to fixed outcomes, overthinking, or replaying the past. Mindfulness, the simple act of paying attention to the present moment without judgment, loosens that grip. When you're mindful, you notice things you'd normally overlook: the rhythm of your breath, the sound of rain, the way colors shift at sunset. And creativity thrives on noticing. Innovation often comes from connecting dots no one else saw, and mindfulness helps you see those dots clearly. Scene 4. Simple practices to try. You don't have to shave your head or live in a monastery to apply this. Here are 2 simple ways to bring mindful Buddhist practice into your creative life. Mindful transitions. Before starting creative work, pause for 2 minutes. Sit, close your eyes, and focus on your breath. Let thoughts drift in and out like clouds. This signals to your mind that you're entering a different mode, not rushed, but open. Single task attention. Choose one small activity each day: making tea, washing dishes, walking to the mailbox, and do it with full awareness. This trains your mind to focus without distraction, a skill that directly feeds your ability to work deeply and creatively. Scene 5. The middle way and rest. Buddhism also teaches the middle way, avoiding extremes. Creativity doesn't flourish when you're burnt out any more than a plant grows without sunlight. Rest isn't laziness, it's part of the creative process. Some of history's greatest breakthroughs came during moments of stillness. Einstein daydreaming, Steve Jobs taking long walks, countless artists finding clarity in meditation. Think of your ideas as seeds. If you dig them up every day to check progress, they'll never grow. But if you water them with mindful attention and give them space, they'll sprout naturally. Scene 6. Turning mindfulness into a creative habit. Here's the beautiful part. The more you practice mindfulness, the more it becomes a habit. Soon, you'll start noticing how inspiration comes not only when you're working, but in the most unexpected places: in the shower, on a quiet drive, or while listening to a friend's story. And when those ideas come, they won't feel forced or frantic. They'll feel like they belong, because they've grown out of stillness, not stress. So the next time you hit a creative wall, ask yourself, instead of pushing harder, can I step back? Can I breathe, observe, and trust that the mind knows how to find its own way forward? Creativity isn't a rare gift. It's a natural state we all share, hidden beneath layers of noise. Mindful Buddhist practice is simply a way of clearing those layers so the light can shine through. And maybe, just maybe, your next big idea is already here, waiting in the quiet, ready to be found. Unlocking creativity through mindful Buddhist practice. Opening hook. You're told to brainstorm, to push harder for new ideas. But what if the true path to groundbreaking creativity lies in letting go? In a stillness rooted in ancient Buddhist traditions. Prepare to have your understanding of innovation turned upside down, as we explore how mindful practices, seemingly simple, Hold the key to unlocking your most profound and original thoughts. Scene 1. Challenging the conventional wisdom. Most of us have been taught that creativity comes from effort. The more you think, the harder you push, the faster you'll find your breakthrough. But here's the paradox. Some of the most brilliant ideas in history have emerged not in moments of strain, but in moments of stillness. Einstein imagined his theory of relativity while daydreaming about riding a beam of light. Steve Jobs found some of his most innovative insights while walking quietly through nature. These moments weren't powered by frantic mental effort. They were born from spaciousness. Buddhist wisdom has understood this for over 2,000 years. The mind's deepest insights often surface when we stop trying to force them. Scene 2. The pond and the storm. Think of your mind as a pond. If the surface is constantly disturbed, ripples from worry, waves of deadlines, storms of overthinking, you can't see the treasures lying at the bottom. But when the water is still, the depths become visible. Mindfulness, a cornerstone of Buddhist practice, is the art of calming those waters. It's not about shutting down your thoughts or forcing peace. It's about observing your mind without judgment, letting thoughts drift by like clouds across the sky. In that space, something remarkable happens. You start to notice subtle connections, unexpected patterns, the seeds of original ideas. Scene 3. A real-life example. I remember speaking with a painter who had been creatively blocked for months. She had tried everything, sketching every day, researching trends, even collaborating with other artists. But nothing felt authentic. Out of curiosity, she joined a meditation class at a small Buddhist temple. The first few sessions were frustrating. I couldn't stop thinking, she told me. But then, one evening, as she sat focusing on her breath, she noticed the fading light through the temple window. The way the color shifted, deep orange melting into soft purple, sparked something in her. That single moment of pure presence inspired a new series of paintings that became her most celebrated work. She hadn't found her idea by hunting it down. She had allowed it to emerge on its own. Scene 4. Why this works. From a Buddhist perspective, our natural state is clear and creative. The problem isn't that we lack ideas, it's that we are constantly clouding the mind with noise. Mindfulness clears that space. When you release the grip of overthinking, you stop recycling the same old mental patterns. This is where innovation is born, in the quiet spaces between thoughts. It's why meditation, walking mindfully, or even doing the dishes with full attention can lead to those aha moments. Scene 5. Simple ways to practice. You don't need to disappear to a monastery to start. Try this. The breath reset. Before beginning any creative work, close your eyes for 2 minutes. Breathe slowly. With each exhale, imagine releasing the weight of deadlines and expectations. Mindful observation. Take a daily 5-minute walk and notice one detail you've never paid attention to before. The texture of a leaf, the way shadows stretch across the sidewalk, the scent of fresh rain. These moments sharpen your awareness and expand your creative palette. Creative rest. Schedule time for non-doing. It could be sitting in the sun with no phone, sipping tea while watching the steam rise, or listening to the hum of the evening. Rest creates the mental spaciousness creativity needs to breathe. Scene 6. The middle way and balance. Buddhism speaks of the middle way, not leaning too far into either extreme. Creativity, too, thrives in balance. Yes, there's a place for focus and effort, but there's also a place for release. Pushing endlessly without pause leads to burnout, while doing nothing forever leads to stagnation. The magic happens in the rhythm between the two, like the inhale and exhale of breath. Scene 7. A shift in perspective. Here's the real shift. Instead of asking, how can I force myself to be creative? Ask, how can I make space for creativity to visit me? This simple change in mindset can transform the way you work. When you see creativity as a guest rather than a captive, you treat it with more respect. You don't demand it appear on command. You prepare the space, you open the door, and you trust that it will arrive. Closing reflection. So the next time you're staring at a blank page, an empty canvas, or a stalled project, resist the urge to push harder. Instead, step back. Breathe. Be still. Let the noise settle, like dust in sunlight. Because sometimes, the most profound and original ideas don't come when you're chasing them. They come when you're still enough to hear them whisper. The modern creativity crisis. How ancient wisdom can save us. Opening scene. Setting the stage. It's strange, isn't it? We live in a time when we have more tools for creativity than ever before. high-speed internet, endless online tutorials, AI software that can generate images or write stories in seconds. And yet, many of us feel less creative than ever. Maybe you felt it too. You sit down to work on something meaningful, and instead of ideas flowing, your mind keeps drifting to emails, notifications, or the temptation to scroll. Hours pass, and the blank page still stares back at you. This is the modern creativity crisis. We are drowning in information but starving for inspiration. Scene 1. Why modern life is making us stuck. The pace of modern life is relentless. We are constantly switching between tasks, bombarded by alerts, and pressured to produce without pause. In this environment, our attention is stretched so thin that deep, original thinking becomes almost impossible. Science backs this up. Studies show that when our brains are in a constant state of partial attention, our ability to make novel connections drops sharply. Creativity doesn't flourish in chaos. It needs focus, space, and time to breathe. But instead of giving ourselves that space, we push harder. We sit longer at the desk. We Google more. We drink another coffee. And yet the harder we push, the more stuck we feel. Scene 2. The familiar struggles. If you've ever experienced writer's block, creative burnout, or that heavy feeling of being stuck, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not just frustrating, it's exhausting. And the worst part? We start questioning ourselves. Maybe I'm not creative after all. Maybe I've lost it. But what if I told you that the problem isn't you? It's the conditions you're creating for your creativity. Scene 3. A radical but ancient solution. Here's where it gets interesting. Long before smartphones, before emails and endless notifications, ancient cultures understood something we've forgotten. Creativity thrives in stillness. Buddhist practices, especially mindfulness, were designed to help the mind slow down, focus, and see clearly. This wasn't about being productive or getting results in the modern sense. It was about cultivating presence, awareness, and deep insight. And here's the radical idea. These ancient practices might be the exact solution to our modern creativity crisis. Scene 4. Why stillness works. Let me give you an image. Imagine your mind is a glass of water filled with sand. If you keep shaking it, with constant thinking, scrolling, and multitasking, the water stays cloudy. But when you set the glass down and let it rest, the sand settles, and the water becomes clear. That clarity is what mindfulness offers. It doesn't erase your thoughts. It lets the noise settle so you can see the ideas already hidden beneath the surface. Many people think taking time to meditate or slow down is wasting time. But in reality, stillness is one of the most productive things you can do for your creativity. Scene 5. A personal example. I'll never forget a friend of mine, a graphic designer, who was stuck on a branding project for weeks. Every attempt felt wrong, forced. Out of frustration, she decided to take a break. No design work, no brainstorming, just a daily morning walk without her phone. By the 4th day, something shifted. Watching the morning light filter through the trees, she suddenly imagined the entire visual direction for the project. The color palette, the textures, the typography, all of it came in a rush. And when she returned to her desk, it flowed out effortlessly. She hadn't figured it out by pushing harder. She had created the conditions for the idea to come to her. Scene 6. Bringing ancient wisdom into modern life. You don't need to escape to a monastery or go on a 10-day silent retreat to tap into this. You can start small. The mindful minute. Before diving into work, take just 1 minute to close your eyes and breathe. Notice the sensations in your body, the rise and fall of your chest. Single tasking. Pick one activity today. Cooking, walking, even washing dishes, and do it without multitasking. Let your mind settle into the rhythm of the moment. Digital boundaries. Give yourself pockets of time each day with no screens, even if it's just 20 minutes. Protect this space like your creativity depends on it, because it does. Scene 7. A shift in mindset. The truth is, we can't think our way out of every creative block. Sometimes, the answer isn't in more effort, it's in less. It's in trusting that the mind, when given space and silence, will naturally reconnect with its creative flow. Buddhist traditions remind us that wisdom and insight are not things we have to chase. They are states we return to by clearing away the clutter. Closing reflection. So the next time you feel creatively stuck, instead of asking, how can I think harder? Try asking, how can I be more present? Because maybe, just maybe, the breakthrough you've been searching for is already here, waiting quietly for you to slow down enough to hear it. Mindfulness, the foundation of insight. Have you ever noticed that your most brilliant ideas tend to appear when your mind is quiet, not when you're forcing yourself to think harder? Maybe it's in the shower, on a quiet walk, or during that peaceful pause before you drift off to sleep. This isn't an accident. This is the nature of the mind when it's free from noise. And that's exactly what mindfulness gives us, not just peace, but clarity. We often think of mindfulness as meditation. Sitting cross-legged, eyes closed, breathing slowly. And yes, that can be part of it. But mindfulness is so much bigger than that. It's not about escaping life. It's about entering it more fully. It's the art of being awake in this exact moment, noticing what's here without being pulled into the constant chatter of what's next or what's wrong. Think about it. How much of your day is spent in the present moment? We often live as if the past and the future are more important than now. Our thoughts replay yesterday's mistakes or try to script tomorrow's conversations. Meanwhile, the present moment, where life actually happens, slips away quietly. Mindfulness is the practice of reversing that habit. When the mind is scattered, jumping from one thought to another, we see only fragments of reality. But when the mind is focused, anchored in what is real right now, it becomes like a clear lake. Still water reflects everything without distortion. A still mind reflects life with the same honesty. From that stillness, insight arises naturally. You start noticing connections you couldn't see before, solutions you didn't think existed, beauty in things you once overlooked. Science backs this up too. Studies show that when we reduce mental background noise, the brain's default mode network, the part responsible for mind wandering, quiets down. This frees up cognitive resources for creativity, problem-solving, and decision-making. In simple terms, a quieter mind doesn't just feel better, it thinks better. Let's make this real for a moment. Imagine you're working on a tough problem, maybe at work, maybe in your personal life. Your first instinct might be to push harder, think faster, brainstorm more ideas. But that's like trying to untangle a knot by pulling it tighter. Instead, what if you paused, took 3 slow breaths, placed your attention fully on the sound of your breath or the weight of your feet on the ground? In that moment, you're telling your mind, you don't need to run right now. You can just be. And often, when you return to the problem, the knot has already loosened. Here's the good news. Mindfulness doesn't require hours of meditation. You can weave it into your day in simple, powerful ways. Single tasking. For one activity today, drinking coffee, washing dishes, even sending an email, do it with your full attention. Notice every detail, without rushing to the next thing. Sensory check-ins. At random moments, pause and name one thing you can see, hear, and feel. It's a quick way to pull yourself back into now. Mindful breathing. Take 3 slow, deep breaths whenever you feel your mind racing. Make the exhale slightly longer than the inhale to calm your nervous system. These may seem small, but their effect compounds. Like drops of water filling a jar, each moment of presence builds your capacity to stay grounded when life gets loud. I'll share something personal. There was a time when my mind was constantly running. Work deadlines, relationship worries, that nagging sense that I should be doing more. I thought if I kept thinking about my problems, I'd somehow think my way out of them. But instead, I just felt more stuck. It wasn't until I started practicing mindfulness, pausing to actually see the trees on my morning walk, to feel the warmth of the mug in my hand, that I realized how much life I'd been missing. And here's the strange part. When I stopped chasing solutions so hard, they started showing up. Problems felt less like walls and more like puzzles I could navigate. Mindfulness doesn't magically remove all difficulties, but it changes your relationship with them. Instead of reacting blindly, you respond with awareness. Instead of being swept away by thoughts, you choose which ones to follow. That's where insight lives, in the space between stimulus and response, where you are truly free to choose. So, if you take just one thing from this, let it be this. Mindfulness is not about becoming someone else. It's about coming home to yourself. It's about meeting each moment as it is, and trusting that clarity will emerge not from pushing harder, but from seeing more clearly. Today, before you rush to the next thing, ask yourself, what's here right now that I'm not noticing? The answer might surprise you. And it might just be the spark of the insight you've been looking for all along. Buddhist principles for creative breakthroughs. Have you ever sat down to create something, a painting, a piece of writing, a business idea, and felt like your mind was a tightly shut door? You knock, you push, you even kick it a little, but nothing opens. Creative blocks are like that. They don't care how talented or hardworking you are. They show up uninvited, whispering doubts and convincing you that maybe today, you're just not inspired. But what if I told you that some of the most powerful tools to break through those blocks aren't found in productivity books or brainstorming techniques, but in ancient Buddhist wisdom? Let's start with impermanence, the gentle but profound truth that nothing lasts forever. Not joy, not pain, not the blank screen staring back at you. When you deeply understand impermanence, you realize that your creative block is not a permanent state. It's a passing weather pattern in the mind. You don't have to wrestle it into submission. You can simply let it move through. Imagine your creative process as a river. Sometimes it flows with ease. Sometimes rocks appear, slowing the current. Impermanence reminds you, the water will keep moving. The rocks will not stay forever. So instead of panicking when the flow slows down, you trust the nature of the river. You keep showing up, letting ideas trickle back in their own time. Connected to impermanence is the practice of non-attachment. We live in a world obsessed with outcomes, finishing the novel, selling the painting, launching the perfect product. But attachment to results can choke your creativity. It's like trying to grow a flower while constantly tugging on the stem to see if it's taller yet. Non-attachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you release the grip, allowing your work to breathe. When you create without clinging to what it must be, you open the door to what it could be. This is where the beginner's mind becomes your greatest ally. In Zen, beginner's mind means approaching each moment as if you've never been here before. It's stepping into your studio or office not as the expert who already knows, but as someone curious, playful, willing to be surprised. Think about a child given a box of crayons. They don't say, "Oh, I can't draw that, I'm not good at perspective." They just start. Lines become dragons. Circles become the sun. Mistakes turn into new worlds. That's beginner's mind. Creativity without the heavy luggage of what you think you should know. The truth is, our expertise can sometimes be a cage. We rely on the familiar, the proven, and we stop seeing possibilities that are right in front of us. Beginner's mind cracks that cage open. It allows you to look at the problem you've been stuck on for weeks and suddenly say, "What if I turned it upside down?" And just like that, fresh air rushes in. But there's one more principle that ties it all together: compassion. Compassion for others is powerful, but for creativity, compassion for yourself might be even more essential. Because when we hit a block, we often turn against ourselves. Why can't I do this? I'm terrible. I should be further along by now. That inner criticism doesn't push you forward. It freezes you. Buddhism teaches that compassion softens the hard edges of the heart. So when you're staring at that stubborn canvas or blinking cursor, try speaking to yourself the way you'd speak to a dear friend. It's okay. You're trying. You'll find your way. This kindness creates a safe space inside you, a place where ideas can emerge without fear of being instantly judged. And compassion extends outward, too. When you share your work in a spirit of generosity instead of fear, offering it as a gift rather than a test, you create an environment where others feel safe to contribute, collaborate, and spark new ideas together. I once worked on a project with a team where every suggestion was met with yes, but you could feel the air tighten in the room. Contrast that with another group I joined, where the unspoken rule was let's explore it. No idea was too small or strange to consider. That atmosphere, rooted in compassion and openness, led to breakthroughs none of us could have created alone. So here's what I invite you to remember. Impermanence. Your block will pass. You don't need to fight it. You can let it flow. Non-attachment. Let go of the stranglehold on outcomes and watch creativity breathe again. Beginner's mind. Approach your work with curiosity, not certainty. Compassion. Be kind to yourself and to others in the creative process. Creativity isn't about forcing lightning to strike. It's about creating the conditions for it to land. And Buddhist principles aren't just spiritual concepts. They're practical tools that shape those conditions. So the next time you feel stuck, maybe don't ask, "How do I break through this wall?" Instead, ask, "What if this wall is just a cloud passing by?" Then sit back, breathe, and let the current carry you forward. After all, every masterpiece begins in the empty space. And in that space, if you listen closely, you might just hear your next idea knocking. Practical application. Daily creativity hacks, the mindful artist's way. Have you ever noticed how your most creative ideas often appear when you're not forcing them? Maybe in the shower, during a walk, or while washing dishes. There's a reason for that. Our minds are like water. The more we stir and agitate them, the cloudier they become. But when we allow stillness, clarity emerges on its own. Today, I want to share 3 simple, mindfulness-inspired practices that can help you tap into that effortless flow every day. These aren't lofty theories. They're practical tools you can start using right after this video. 1. The power of micropauses. Let's start with something deceptively simple. Short mindfulness pauses throughout your creative process. Imagine this. Before you dive into brainstorming, you take 60 seconds, just 1 minute, to close your eyes, breathe deeply, and notice the rise and fall of your chest. No agenda. No fixing. Just breathing. It might feel strange at first, especially if you're used to rushing into action. But here's what happens. Your mind slows down just enough for new pathways to open. In Buddhist practice, there's an understanding that awareness works like a gentle light. It doesn't force things into existence, it simply illuminates what's already there. When you pause before starting, you're giving your creative mind space to whisper its best ideas. Try it not just before you start, but also during editing, or whenever you feel stuck. You might be surprised how a single mindful breath can clear away hours of overthinking. 2. Walking your way out of a mental block. When you hit a creative wall, your instinct might be to push harder, to sit longer, focus more, grind until something comes. But sometimes, the most productive thing you can do is walk away, literally. Walking meditation is one of the simplest yet most profound Buddhist practices. It's not about strolling aimlessly with your mind elsewhere. Instead, it's about truly feeling each step, the heel touching down, the shift of weight, the toes lifting off. Your attention is anchored in the rhythm of your movement. Here's a little experiment. The next time you feel stuck, step outside, or even just walk around your home. Put your phone away. Don't plan what to say, write, or design next. Just walk, feel, and breathe. Often, your mind will loosen its grip on the problem, and solutions will emerge naturally. Steve Jobs was known for his walking meetings, not because he read it in a productivity book, but because movement and clarity are deeply connected. 3. The no judgment zone for early drafts. Now, let's talk about the moment every creator dreads, the messy first draft. Whether you're writing a song, painting a canvas, or filming a scene, the first attempt often feels, well, not good enough. But here's the thing, it's not supposed to be. Buddhist philosophy teaches acceptance, not as passive resignation, but as an active choice to see things as they are without trying to force them into perfection before their time. What if you approached your early creative work the same way? No judgment. No pressure to impress. Just curiosity. Think of it like planting seeds. You wouldn't dig them up every hour to see if they've sprouted perfectly, right? You'd give them time, light, and patience. The no judgment zone is that fertile soil for creativity. You can refine later. For now, just let your ideas live, breathe, and grow. The common thread. All 3 of these practices, mindful pauses, walking meditation, and no judgment creation, share one thing in common. They help you step out of the noise in your head and into the living moment. And the living moment is where creativity actually happens. You can't create in the past. You can't create in the future. You can only create right now. A personal note. When I first started experimenting with mindfulness in my work, I was skeptical. I thought, how can stopping help me move forward? But the more I practiced, the more I realized, creativity isn't a race. It's a garden. And a garden grows not just because you work hard on it, but because you give it space and time. One day, while working on a script, I felt completely blocked. Instead of forcing myself to keep typing, I closed my laptop and went for a slow walk. About 15 minutes in, without trying, the opening line of the scene popped into my head, effortlessly, like a gift. I wrote it down as soon as I got home, and it became one of the most loved parts of the project. That's the thing about creativity. The harder you chase it, the faster it runs. But when you slow down and create space, it comes to sit beside you. Your turn. If you're watching this, I want you to try just one of these practices today. Not tomorrow. Not when you have time. Today. Maybe it's a 60-second breathing pause before you start your work. Maybe it's a mindful walk during your lunch break. Or maybe you give yourself permission to make a gloriously imperfect first draft. And then, notice. Notice what happens to your mood, your focus, your ideas. Creativity isn't about squeezing more hours into the day. It's about making the hours you have more alive. Closing thought. Buddhism reminds us that awareness transforms everything it touches, not because it changes what we see, but because it changes how we see. When we bring awareness into our creative process, we are not just making better art. We are making art from a better place within ourselves. So slow down. Breathe. Walk. Create without judgment. Your best ideas aren't somewhere out there. They're already here, waiting for you to notice them. Your creative renaissance awaits. Sometimes, we think creativity belongs to a select few: painters, poets, musicians. But the truth is, every one of us carries an artist within. We express it when we solve problems at work, cook a meal that surprises even ourselves, or find a clever way to make someone laugh. Creativity isn't a distant mountain. It's the air we breathe. The question is, are we breathing deeply enough? What's fascinating is that some of the oldest practices in human history, things as simple as mindful breathing, journaling, or walking in silence, are turning out to be the most powerful keys to unlocking our modern-day creative block. These traditions, which might sound ancient or spiritual, are actually deeply practical. They were born from human beings who, just like us, face the restlessness of the mind, the weight of daily responsibility, and the longing for something more. In a world obsessed with speed, these practices ask us to slow down, to listen, to notice, and in doing so, they create the exact conditions where creativity can breathe again. Because here's the irony: creativity doesn't thrive when we force it. It comes alive when we make space for it to arrive naturally, like a guest who feels truly welcome. Imagine this: you set aside just 10 minutes a day to simply be present. No phone, no TV, no urgent to-do list screaming for attention. You might close your eyes and take a few deep breaths, or write down 3 sentences about what you noticed today: the color of the sky, the sound of your own footsteps, the way your coffee smelled this morning. At first, it feels like nothing's happening. But slowly, something shifts. The noise in your head quiets, and ideas you didn't know you had start to rise to the surface. That's why these ancient practices are so astonishingly relevant today. In an age of endless scrolling, they give us back the ability to focus. In a time when our attention is the most valuable currency, they help us reclaim it. And when you reclaim your attention, you reclaim your art, whatever art means for you. So here's my challenge to you. This week, choose just 1 or 2 of these practices and actually try them. Not as a chore, but as an experiment. Take a mindful walk without headphones. Write 1 paragraph in a journal before bed. Sit quietly for 5 minutes in the morning with your coffee, simply noticing the way the light falls in your kitchen. That's it. Because the real magic doesn't happen when you read about these ideas. It happens when you live them. You'll start to notice a subtle but powerful shift. Your mind feels less cluttered, your thoughts flow more freely, and you approach your work, or your relationships, with more openness and curiosity. Creativity isn't just about producing something new. It's about experiencing life with fresh eyes. And the beautiful part? This isn't a one-time spark. With a mindful approach, creativity becomes a well you can draw from again and again. Instead of burning out after a burst of inspiration, you build a steady, renewable energy, a rhythm that sustains you for years. You stop chasing the next big idea like it's some rare comet in the sky, and you start realizing it's more like the sunrise, reliable, always there, waiting for you to notice. This is your creative renaissance. Not in some distant future when you finally have more time, or when life settles down, but right here, right now. All it takes is the decision to pause, to pay attention, and to let your inner artist breathe. So, what will you choose? Will you let another week slip by in the rush of emails, deadlines, and background noise? Or will you give yourself the gift of presence, just for a few moments a day, and see what blooms? Because your most extraordinary work might not come from trying harder, but from being here more fully. Your creative renaissance awaits. Step into it.